So I'm worshiping, and the Father looks at me. He turns and he looks at me and he says, "I'll be back." And just then, the cherubs, the two on my side, start beating their wings. And there is this iridescent dust that's the glory cloud. Imagine if you're in a fog and every single piece of fog is a different color. Okay. Just imagine you could see the mist. And they start beating and start going, whoo, 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 and it sounds like a helicopter almost coming to you, just whoop, 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 whoop. And there was a point that they started beating their wings so fast, it sounded like that helicopter coming at you. And suddenly all those little iridescent particles of glory just suddenly burst into flame, and they were a complete ball of flame, completely enclosed in flames. So my heart is always to worship the Father. So I just suddenly found myself on my knees to the side, as if the Father is looking straight ahead. I was on his left side. And this is rare because I really don't share this first time I was with the Father, but it's special. But I feel I could share it anyway. So my hands are down. The flooring is, like it says, it's clear, but it's white. It's pure light, and it's got a beveled edge. The tiles are really well fit together, but kind of beveled, but not like you trip on it or catch a heel or something. There's just a roundness, to the edges slightly. And the Father's there. He's not, you don't think of him as 50 feet tall or 100 feet tall or something like that. I suppose if you were a child, you might think he's 30 feet tall, because the throne goes up a little bit. It's not like it's sitting like a recliner on your living room. There's steps up to it and everything. And there's cherubs around there. Now, I'd seen cherubs before in another visitation. They're about 5.5 feet tall. They're not very big. They're multiple winged, like it's described. It was interesting that I was worshiping, and I'll share this with you, and it may sound goofy, but I'm telling you, this is what happened. So I'm worshiping, and the Father looks at me. He turns and he looks at me and he says, "I'll be back." And just then, the cherubs, the two on my side, start beating their wings. And there is this iridescent dust that's the glory cloud. Imagine if you're in a fog and every single piece of fog is a different color. Okay. Just imagine you could see the mist. And they start beating and start going, whoo, 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 and it sounds like a helicopter almost coming to you, just whoop, 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 whoop. And there was a point that they started beating their wings so fast, it sounded like that helicopter coming at you. And suddenly all those little iridescent particles of glory just suddenly burst into flame, and they were a complete ball of flame, completely enclosed in flames. And I could see through that they bent down, and somehow they lifted up the flooring where the Father was seated, and they picked up the flooring and they put it like on their shoulders. And then and they did this in unison, so that the throne platform is now on the cherub's shoulders. And then it picks up like this, and the Father says, "I'll be back." And it goes like that and banks away like an airplane. And I'm going, in my mind, I'm going, okay, chapter, verse, chapter, verse, chapter, verse, and I'm going back to Ezekiel chapter 1, where Ezekiel is standing by the river Kibar, and he sees what he describes as balls of fire coming at him. And he's describing the throne platform of the Father God. And then in my mind, I'm remembering that the Lord, the Father, is an Oriental king. And Oriental kings, if you've ever seen a Chinese tapestry, if you've ever seen Indian subcontinent of India, if you've ever seen anything from India, they hold their potentates, they hold their officials, their kings, their emperors on their shoulders on a dais there. There's a seat and everything. And I remembered how the Levites were instructed to run a pole through the Ark of the Covenant and carry it on their shoulders toward the Holy of Holies. And so all this is going through, it's like, wow, this makes sense. I just never thought this is how it would be applied. And it seemed like a half an hour went by, and I'm thinking, okay, so the Father God does go places in the universe. He can go places. He visited Ezekiel. He came down on Mount Sinai. In Revelation 4, he brought John up to him. And I'm going through all of this, The Father came down on the Mount of Transfiguration. He came down to the top of the mountain to talk to Jesus and Moses and Elijah. Yeah, so he came, the whole process was reversed. And he came, it seemed like a half an hour. He came down, he came in, sat down, the cherubs, took off the shoulder, put the flooring back, so it was a seamless transition. And they stood there and their wings just slowed down like that. And